Comparative anatomy, that was interesting that he would use that one about the whale's flipper. Comparative anatomy, if I can get to that one. Oh, did I get to the right one? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to install the ocular enhancers. Hey, I'm 50 years old. I've been fighting it as long as I can, all right? It's true that the human arm and the whale's flipper and the bat's wing have some similarities. I agree. We have a radius and an ulna, so does the whale, okay? But the whale didn't name them, by the way. This textbook says these homologous structures provide evidence that these animals evolved from a common ancestor. This is baloney. Those structures provide evidence that they have a common designer. The same guy designed them all. It works great. He mentioned the Triceratops. When did God intervene? This is setting up a straw man argument, okay? He says, here's our chart showing how we think the different ceratops evolved. Now, how did God do this? That's a straw man argument, okay? I don't know how many different kinds of creatures God originally created. That's up to him, I suppose, okay? And what he's done, he's taken the evolutionary assumption that there is some kind of order to this geologic column. And by the way, the geologic column does not exist any place on planet Earth, okay? Geologic column is one of the biggest, cruelest jokes in the history of humanity. I taught earth science for years. Geologic column does not exist. And then he mentioned carbon dating, and all these things give ages within a certain range, which proves their accuracy. Well, let's see. Living mollusk shells were carbon dated 2,300 years old. They're still alive. Science, volume 141. Freshly killed seal, carbon dated 1,300 years old. Antarctic Journal, September. Fresh shells from living snails were carbon dated 27,000 years old. Well, that's accurate. This guy said if a C14 date supports our theories, we put it in the main text. If it does not entirely contradict them, we put it in a footnote. If it's completely out of date, we just drop it. Anthropological Journal of Canada, volume 19, said no matter how useful it is, the radiocarbon method is still not capable of yielding accurate and reliable results. There are gross discrepancies. The chronology is uneven and relative. The accepted dates are actually selected dates. This whole blessed thing is nothing but 13th century alchemy. It all depends upon which funny paper you read. One part of a mammoth dated 29,000 years old. Another part of the same animal is 44,000 years old. Man, you talk about a slow birth. Dima, well, I told you I need 6 minutes, but that's okay. We got plenty more. Get video number 7 right out there. Thank you so much.
I did, in fact, extend to 6 minutes because it is a common complaint of all debaters that they're cut off too early, and you will have 6 minutes as well. Kyle Fraser, you're up next.
Are you with me? Are there? Have I mentioned yet what a hard thing this is to do? It seemed to me like I did that a minute ago. Well, here I am back again, and I'm having to put together some stray thoughts. And like Brother Hovind, I'm sure it's kind of like hitting a moving target. You know, you don't know where you're going. But what I would like to do is take a quick look at one of the comments that Brother Hovind made, and that is that his God is powerful enough to do anything. And I think we need to be careful with that type of Aquinan logic. I do agree that God has ultimate power. In other words, that He is the most powerful of any conceivable being in the universe. But we have to be careful of impugning to God the capacity to do things that He has not claimed. We have to be careful about ascribing to God things that He cannot do. Could He make a stick with only one end? No, a stick has 2 ends on it. It's because that's a logical contradiction for God to do something like that. Can He make a rock that He couldn't lift? Okay? No, it's a logical contradiction for God to do something like that. And so we need to be careful of ascribing to God those things that He has not claimed. And so when I take a look at how powerful God is, and Brother Hovind says his God is powerful enough to do it in 6 days, and that my God is inept because I claim a God that did it in 17 billion years, I have to say, well then, why not 7 nanoseconds? Or why didn't He just do it instantly? Boom! Because for whatever reason, in the chronology that's described in the Scriptures, it follows a sequence. And the writers of the chronology put some devices on it for us to remember. My particular belief is that those devices were terms. Those particular terms included the word day, yom. It's perfectly consistent within the Scriptures to interpret the term day as a 12-hour period, a 24-hour period, or a long period of time. Elsewhere through Genesis, for example, the term day is used in reference to the harvest time. Or, we might say Abraham Lincoln in his day. It's a natural thing for us to use terminology like that. It's used throughout the Scriptures in many, many multiple of occasions, and it's not wrong for us to take it in this context. Why is it then that I have chosen to take the context somewhat differently than the one that seems to show the most powerful God? Because as I showed earlier, I am working from what is called a dual revelational paradigm. The dual revelational paradigm believes that God put His truth in place and that it's true in both places. That He put nature in place and He communicates from us truly with nature. He put His Word in place and He communicates with us truly in His Word. And I believe you occasionally have to set the two of those side by side, and that you have to use a systematic theology to look at those things and say, if nature is saying this, if the Word is saying this, and if there is an apparent contradiction, do we reconcile it? Or do we walk away from it? I believe that it's necessary for us to make that reconciliation. Because if we don't make that reconciliation, what we have, in effect, is a universe that sent us light over 17 billion light years away. It is moving away from us, as Dr. Hovind has suggested. And since it is moving away from us, it's expanding. And that light has gotten to us after about 17 billion years, and we're observing it now. For us to have observed it any sooner than that, either the events on the outside edge of that travel never occurred, or were fictitiously made by God for us to observe them that way, or they actually happened at that distance and that amount of time away from us. I believe that God communicates His Word in truth. There are numerous examples of this. I could list just a few: Psalms 104, Psalms 139, Job 38:41. But my need is to take a look at this concept of a long day. The first chapter of Genesis declares that within 6 days, God's miraculously transformed a formless void, the earth, into a suitable habitat for mankind. The meaning for day here has become the center of the controversy. Does it or does it not make for a conflict between the Scripture and science? The answer to that depends upon whether the time periods indicated are 24 hours or in the order of millions of years. Many scientists and many Bible scholars would agree that the correct and literal interpretation for the creation day is one that takes into account definitions, context, grammar, and relevant passages in other parts of Scripture. All we're trying to do is take a systematic approach to this. In fact, one of the problems I have with the approach to the Scriptures that take one verse out of a series and apply it to all of our life is the failure to do a systematic approach to the Scriptures. Because you see, even the Scriptures on occasion have items in them that you look at and you say, it just said this. I'll give you an example in Proverbs. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or he will despise you. The very next verse it says, answer a fool according to his folly, or he will despise you. Are we wrong in taking both of those as correct? Isn't one or the other true? The fact of the matter is that the Scriptures intend for us to take both as true. And I believe that the Scriptures are also saying that we should take nature as true, as well as